All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to History Saver 1941. We are live streaming tonight on YouTube, bringing back the Coffee and History podcast. It's been a while. Had a lot of things going on here on the home front for a good 3 or 4 months. So things have been a little bit out of action. The chat is open. You guys can log in on the chat rooms. You can talk with us, and I can see your comments right here. And anything that you want to say, well, you could get them here. And tonight we have a very interesting conversation. We're going to welcome in my good friend Daz, who is over in the UK right now. He is just coming off of a really, really interesting trip to Auschwitz. How's it going, Daz?
Yeah, really well, thank you, my friend. Excellent, and I'm still trying to process what I felt and what I saw. I've been struggling with it all day, actually, to be honest.
I can't imagine, man. I have not had the opportunity to go to Auschwitz. Auschwitz, for you guys who may not know, was, of course, the infamous World War II concentration camp for the Jewish people in Poland. And the Nazis sent tens of thousands, millions of people to these things. And Auschwitz just so happened to be the number one um, just camp that they had set up, and the atrocities there were totally outrageous. And Das spent this week there. Is that correct, Das?
That's correct. So I flew into Krakow, which is where you need to go if you want to get there. I mean, there is another city, but I can't remember the name of it. But Krakow is the place you want to go. It's got a good nightlife as well. It goes back to the 1300s. So if you're looking for history, that's definitely up your street. And again, like I said, there's plenty there for you to see and do. But it's a very easy hop, jump, and a skip to get to where you need to get to the town. And I can't pronounce the town, so do forgive me. But it is located in a town it's just west, about an hour and a half bus ride from Krakow. I mean, there are other means of getting there. There's trains. There's many ways of getting there. Organised tours. I went on sort of a part one, and it was very cheap. Krakow is only 2 hours from the UK. And again, very cheap. Cool. Thanks for bringing that picture up. Anyway.
What are we looking at here?
So this is actually the first camp. So originally Auschwitz, the first camp, was actually an army barracks. Now I actually walked the perimeter before I went in because I had little time. You can only go in at certain dedicated times. Each time you get given a time slot with your group. Mine was, I think, 4:15 in the afternoon. So I had about an hour to kill. So I thought, you know what, I'll walk around the perimeter. So I walked around this whole place. And I noticed that next door there is a modern army camp. So, yeah, they did actually continue after the war using the area as an army camp. But originally it was a Polish army camp. As you know, like the Nazis come in and they very quickly convert this to put political but also Jewish Polish prisoners. But eventually it changes its use to bring in from all over Europe. So Holland, Germany as well, Hungary, all of those countries. Also there was bringing in prisoners from the east. From Russia as well, because when they started conquering some of that territory, the Soviet Union, they started bringing in people from there. But it got too small, so they decided to build a bigger camp just a little bit down the road, and that's Birkenau, Auschwitz 2, and that is just absolutely huge. And I think I sent you some an aerial. Was it Google Map shot of just to show you the scale of it? So that's what we're used to seeing, isn't it? As like, the I can't use that word, can I? Iconic. It's something that's going to remind you of. There you go. See, look at the size of that place. Now, where the dot is, that is the entrance there that you're seeing. And the platform, you see the size of that platform. Now, it's synonymous with seeing those pictures, those trains arriving and people just getting off and completely disorientated. And from what my understanding, some of those people could have been on those trains and shoved into those pretty much cattle carts for hours on end in the complete darkness. And so when they get off, those towers are probably going to be the last thing some of them see, because there's something that took sorry Josh, there was something that took place on the platform, and that was segregation. They decided whether you were fit, old, young, whatever, they would separate you into two, and you would either go left or right. If you went left, well, you're pretty much going to your death straight away. Although there were two gas chambers at the end of each area, which they tried to get rid of, and the rubble's still there. Obviously they wanted to try and hide evidence, but something of this scale, you can't hide that. This was extermination on like an industrial level. It was just, but standing there and actually like walking on that ground was just strange. And again, this is one of those examples, and they even had a diagram of how it was operated, and there was an underground area where people would have to take their clothes off, and then they would be taken into a chamber where, again, they probably wouldn't have known much about it after that. Of course, you need, they needed to get rid of the bodies, and so they used these massive furnaces. I didn't walk the whole of that area at that place because it's so huge, but I could see old style gas, like, I don't know, I can't explain them, like gas silos or something like that, on like sitting on some kind of like, I don't know, like brick wall type thing. I didn't take a picture of it because they were quite far away. I didn't want to walk over that way. I just didn't want to. There's something saying to me, don't go over there.
Just to ask here, we're of course looking at the ruins. Uh, this massive count. I mean, the count was huge. Looking back on the aerial we just showed, it was absolutely huge. Now, I'm going to ask you, and you may or may not know the answer to this question because I honestly most certainly do not. Is how many structures and barracks? Do you know how many of those were actually located here at Auschwitz?
Wow, that's a good question. A lot of that, like I said, a lot of it was taken down, and what I don't know whether some of it was taken down afterwards, but all that's left is chimney stacks, and there was too many to count on just one side. The left side that I was talking about, so if you was coming in the camp, I'm talking about left, right, that's the way you'd come in. Left, they still had a fair few of those sort of structures still up, and there was a lot. Again, I can't remember how many, but this is actually Camp 1, this one. So this is the camp that was there before. But I don't know whether I managed to get a picture of that one or not, of the chimneys. But honestly, I don't know, mate. It's vast, and all you can see is the chimney stacks left of these. And I went in on the left side. I did actually go in one of the sleeping huts. And it was a warm day, spring day outside. It was cold as hell in there. And I'm just thinking, in the depths of a Polish winter, that must have been horrendous. They,
Oh, I'm gonna ask. One of the things that you were sent me, Daz, when he was there at Auschwitz earlier this week. And we are fighting technical issues too, guys. By the way, so if you hear things kind of get a little wonky, StreamYard is not acting correctly tonight. It's giving us a lot of feedback, so we're having to kind of do it on the fly. But when Daz was at Auschwitz, he was sending us a bunch of us, friends of his. We're in a group chat together, so he's sending us videos, he's sending us photos as he is exploring Auschwitz for the first time. And me, I've never been there. I don't think any of us had ever been there. before Daz went. So Daz kind of made the pilgrimage to Auschwitz for all of us here. And, he sent this. This is one of the photos he sent. And this is, of course, of one of the interpretive placards there at Auschwitz, I take it. And you could just see the people inside of one of the barracks here. And, Daz, you're talking about, you can't imagine what the people went through here in these harsh winters. I mean, the winters in Poland are brutal. And what was going through your mind personally, just as you're walking through here and you're seeing these barracks at Auschwitz? What is going through your mind, and what are you kind of thinking about? Because I know everyone's visit is a little bit different. Everyone has a different personal connection and meaning when they go there. So I'm just curious. You're talking about you can't imagine that. What were you thinking as you're walking through here?
Well, through here in particular, I can't explain it. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Now, we're talking 80 years ago. It's got a weird, horrible smell to it. I can't explain that smell. It's strange. And the cold. Like I said, it felt cold in there, and eerie, and there was other people in there. I was just thinking, how the hell can, and I don't know how many went in those bunks at a time, but there was a few. And they were just crammed. You think there were 3 levels. And the thing is, if you're at the bottom, these guys have got nowhere to go to the toilet or anything. Oh yeah, this is actually inside one of those. This is the artwork that they drew. Some of the artwork, which was just amazing. That was inside one of those. But again, I don't know what I was thinking at that point, to be honest. I was just shocked, really. I think that, other humans can treat other humans this way. And it didn't really prepare me for what I was going to feel at the first camp, because that, for me, was a worse experience than this experience. This was a horrible experience, but it was sort of more open. It was more sort of like, whereas the other place felt like a prison, because all the buildings have been knocked out. I mean, this is in the first camp as well. This is the furnaces, the original furnaces. And again, they couldn't get enough bodies in there, so that's why they decided, let's go and build a bigger camp down the road. So I think they could probably get one body at a time in each one. Now this is the thing that other people don't realise as well, is that to get favour or to get better treated, some of the Jewish prisoners would be roped into doing all this dirty work. So they would be tasked with pulling those bodies out of that chamber and putting them in those furnaces. The soldiers didn't do any of that. That was other prisoners. I mean, they wouldn't want to go in there because, firstly, disease and everything. I mean, like I said, they didn't have medical treatment or anything. We've got hundreds and hundreds of people living on top of each other. And, I had a long chat with my friend Mark Wheatcroft, because he went before me. And I said, what was going through their minds when they arrived at these places? And he said, well, they thought that, when they got put into the gas chambers, he said, well, they thought they were just going for a shower. But, and again, just looking at this makes me feel cold. Because that's all I felt was cold in there.
I, I can't imagine. I mean, I've read stories, of course, like every World War II, enthusiast has, or just history enthusiasts in general. You don't even really have to be a student of World War II or a scholar of World War II to dive into the story of Auschwitz. I mean, but a lot of people don't understand too. I think if they don't know a whole lot about the war and about what was going on, is this starts before World War II actually, to us started in 1941 here in the United States. It didn't. It actually started way before that. And there were several, I mean, Auschwitz wasn't the only camp like this. There were several of these camps. A friend of mine just passed away. You guys have followed him, I think, if you've been watching the channel. He passed away a few weeks ago. He was a veteran of Patton's division. And one of the things that he did during World War II as a first lieutenant was he liberated Dachau. And he told me stories about liberating Dachau, which was another infamous concentration camp. It was just as bad as Auschwitz. They were all equally as bad as Auschwitz. Auschwitz was just bigger and took a lot more lives than some of the other camps. But, you know, I don't know. I've interviewed Holocaust veterans, people that went through the Holocaust, and just to see this photo, they say photos speak 1,000 words. This photo speaks 1,000 words and 1,000 memories, and every single one of them is bad. Um, I mean, I couldn't imagine sleeping in. I mean, this is basically a freaking hole in the wall with a piece of plywood put up between two brick walls to hold somebody to sleep, and they would sleep on this bare wood, and these are the real deal. And you could just, I don't know, I couldn't imagine visiting this place by myself. I mean, myself in person and looking at this because I don't know if I could stomach it. I want to go one day. It's my dream to go here. But I mean, what what Daz was going kind of through your mind right here, as you are walking through this camp and you're seeing how many of these barracks buildings just like this are there. I mean, it's got to be a really, really powerful visit for you.
Oh yeah, it was upsetting. There's a couple of times I had to stop myself. I got sort of bit emotional, and I had to sort of like stop for a minute because again, just people just crammed into these, and again, there's no comfort at all in there. Nothing. There's absolutely nothing. There was one of the barracks, or one of whatever you want to call it, where they did have a little washroom at the end. That was the only one I saw, and I went in about 3 or 4 of these, and they're all exactly the same. Of course they are. But again, like this is the thing. The people are going to be in different states of I don't know, because people starved as well, didn't they? And people were dying of starvation and thirst and everything. So that everyone was at different levels when they were laying in these things as well. So like, there was even probably people at the bottom were probably dying, and things like that. And if you was at the top, or you was at the middle or something, and somebody at the top had passed away, or had I don't know, gone to toilet or whatever, like this is that they were living in these harsh conditions, man. And there are stories of that sort of thing, but they were just all crammed in there. And again, I don't know, and maybe they kept each other warm somehow, but that were literally all they had on was a whatever they got given, but without sounding, I want to try and put people in the mind of the way that Jewish people were seen by the Nazis at the time. They basically saw there was no better than they actually saw something like an animal was better than a Jewish person. That is what ideology they pushed into the people. That's what I understand it, and it's just, but I still can't wrap my head around it. How an average person could look at another human in this kind of suffering. But again, as I said, the soldiers didn't step foot in those places. They just guarded the perimeters. Again, they had other guys or other people that would do the dirty work for them, as from what I understand it.
Um, you know, I know why you were there. I mean, it for anyone I've ever talked to that's visited Auschwitz, and there's not a lot of people from the states that have been to Auschwitz, um, from what I've gathered. But these camps, man, just the stories that come out of them, and the people who survive these, and I mean, it's even crazy to think that people survived when you read about the atrocities uh, that they were, undergoing even before even making it to these camps. I mean, a lot of the Jewish people were hauled out by the truckloads out of ghettos or to ghettos, and then from the ghettos, and maybe led to a field somewhere and just shot. They never would make it to this. And then when they did make it here, a lot of them were immediately put into the gas chamber or they were executed in some other just brutal form of execution. And, I think over the course of time, people, of course, like to, I don't want to say forget about history, but they don't memorialize these things like they should in certain situations. Um, and it's understandably, I mean, we like to forget about the bad things, do we not? But we also should remember, the things like this. And I'm glad the Holocaust is remembered. The National Holocaust Museum of Washington, D.C. is the next best thing in the States that I could recommend going to for anyone in the United States who can't go to Auschwitz or some of these camps. Go to the National Holocaust Museum. Go visit it because it will open your eyes. And Daz, you sent a couple of photos there, and I don't want to give it away before we get there to what those photos are, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to ask you before we get into all of that, what during your whole visit to Auschwitz, what was the most powerful thing to you personally that you experienced while you were here?
So it wasn't in this camp; it was in the original camp. That was the hardest one of all. That place was. It is like it was built by the devil. That place was horrid. Seriously, there was one. There was one place, and it was. I've got it. I've got it here. Block. Can't remember the block number now. I think it was. I've got it down here. It was block number 9. It's called the Death Block. And this block, just getting emotional thinking about it. So if you while you was in that camp, if you did anything wrong, you were sent to the death block, and they were singular, solitary cells with an iron door with a tiny little hole like that. They were literally, there was nothing in there. They were just chucked in there and starved to death. Nothing. No water, no food. Just chucked in there and starved to death. Now, there was a side door, and there's a thing called the death yard, or whatever you want to call it, and that's where they would shoot people. So originally, before, so if they didn't starve you to death, they just have mass shootings every day in this yard. And I want to go back to that a little bit, because you pointed out something there about the way the Nazis approached this horrid, Holocaust in the beginning. There was an amazing documentary on Netflix, and it's probably still there. It's called Ordinary Men, and what it does is it delves into the minds of normal people, not normal people, but people that do stuff like this, and the mental effect it has on them. And the hierarchy in the SS knew that this was going to have a mental effect on people, keep shooting people and seeing people face to face, and that's why they came up with this horrid idea of mass executions like this, of not having to look at the person and putting them in a chamber instead. But in the early part of this camp, they did have people and line them up against this wall, and that wall's still there, and just shoot them all. And that was, and there was parts of that. There was parts of that you was not allowed to photograph in there. Oh man, that was hard in there. That's where a lot of the pictures of the shoes and everything. There was another block I went in with photographs, and in one room there was children. I couldn't go in there. I had to walk out. I could not look at those because I've got young kids, and they're about my These are children's shoes, by the way. These are not adult shoes. The adult shoes were in the bigger one. These were not adults. These were kids. from all ages, and so that, like I said, that each room had like a, different displays in and that, but this one had, and I could see out of the corner of my eye children's pictures around the walls, and I was like, no, I'm not going in there. I literally walked straight out because that for me was too much. But yeah, no, the death block was the worst one, and I left that to. Do you know, it's really weird because there was a massive queue to get into that one, and I nearly never went in there the first time, and I walked away and I went, no, I need to go there. And then by the time I got there, it died down, and I went in, and I wish I hadn't.
Um, just I don't know. I could tell. Just looking at the pictures for me. When I've seen this picture countless times. I never knew this was children's shoes. But I have seen pictures and videos from Auschwitz, and I just never realized that this was children's shoes. And it reminds me of some of the old World War II footage and photographs of the concentration camps. They would show just upon piles of personal belongings, and it would be shoes in this pile, or briefcases in this pile, suitcases in this pile, and then we start getting into the teeth and the gold jewelry and things like that. And there's one thing I can never wrap my head around, and that is I have tried to put myself, I guess, in the shoes of a common German soldier during World War II that is scared to go into service because I'm scared if I don't, then I may die, or be executed. And that was the case in Germany during World War II. I mean, it really was. But how, even with that logic of thinking, I think personally, I would rather die than see and much more take place in the atrocities such as this. And I've struggled with that thought, several times. Is how could one person do this to another person, even though they saw the Jewish people as basically the equal of the dirt on the bottom of their shoes. Still, I mean, how could you not look at another person, another human being, and know what you're doing? I've never understood it. And this picture, you go to the National Holocaust Museum in Washington D.C., you'll see a similar site there to this. And it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Daz, was going through some of these guys' mind? Why do you think that someone could do this to another human being? Is there? I don't know. Is there? What is your, I guess, thinking on that as well? I'm just curious.
Okay, yeah. So I do sort of have a view on it, and one thing I try and say to people looking at it from a historical aspect is the Nazi Party had been around a long, long time. Germany was hurting from World War One, and they put it into people's brains. Look, we are the good guys. We are the good guys. These are the bad guys. These are the bad guys, regardless of who they were. And I think it got to the point where many normal German people actually started believing all of this stuff. Now, yeah, there were some really, really bad ones as well. And I think when it came to some of these places, when it came to sort of the closer contact stuff, I think they were probably personally selected in some way because they were that way of thinking. But I think your average soldier was probably kept away from that side of things in a way. And they didn't know. But they did know, but do you know what I'm trying to say? They wouldn't have seen it. So the ones in the inner circle, say for instance on the towers, things like that, they would have been personally selected, I feel. Now these are the adult shoes, these ones. And this is a whole massive room, and it's like a corridor. And I think I did a video of that one and sent that to you guys at some point, I'm sure I did. But I just think that they're just brainwashed into believing this shit. And, people are very easily brainwashed.
You know, I I want to ask you, um, is it okay with you if we play that video here of the shoes, and maybe you could take us along as we're kind of seeing it.
Hmm. Yeah, go for it. There we go. Okay, yeah, so like I said, you walk in, it's like a long room, I'm just going to get over this, it's crazy. That's just one side, by the way. It's like a corridor. You think that's just the scratching the surface. It's just awful. But all I could think at that point was about this was the adult shoes. And all I could think is how horrible. I know this sounds weird, strange, but all I could think was about the children's shoes for some reason during this point. I can't explain it. Getting upset thinking about it. And these are the prosthetics. Now, if you was now to now if you was disabled, you was even lower down the pecking order than someone that was Jewish. End of. That was it. You know. Oh yeah, it's hard.
And guys, I am going to say if hopefully I ain't cut Daz off at any point in this interview. We're having to play tag team because we getting a lot of feedback from StreamYard tonight for some reason. New problem. You gotta love technology, but so you the common practice of these camps was if you were in the condition where you needed this, like Daz just said, you were dead before you ever even entered the gates. You couldn't do much for them. They needed you for work. You couldn't work at 100% capacity. Well, they don't need you. And if they don't need you, well, you're not needed at all. And I don't know. I mean, it's powerful to look at this photo and know that everyone who owned one of these probably was never left this camp. And the thing is, while these images, these videos, the topic that we're discussing is disturbing, honestly, to a lot of people, but why is it important for us to remember this kind of stuff is the thing that we have to ask ourselves. And what is your take on this, Des?
Oh, it's tough. Yeah, and again, it's something that is hard to talk about. It is hard to talk about, but we need to talk about this because as humans, we make so many mistakes, and we don't want to make similar mistakes again. But the thing is, wars, and it's okay. Nothing to this probably level, but wars throughout centuries. There's been atrocities, and but I think it would take a lot to top this one. But again, seeing it there, actual in person, is really hard to take. Really hard. And again, I don't know whether I could actually do it again. I probably could for your benefit, Josh. But yeah, I'm glad I did it. But again, I don't think I could do it again. Yeah, no, it's a very strange experience. But again, I'm glad I did that experience. For my own personal self, felt like I had to do it because I did go down a little bit of a rabbit hole a little while back. It was around about the 80th anniversary of the liberation, actually, when I sort of really started going deeper into it. And I watched quite a lot of stuff, and that was hard to watch. Just that, when you start thinking about the Doctor, Joseph Mengele, or whatever his name was. Oh, this guy was absolute evil. This guy was pure evil. Now, I went in one of the hospital blocks and it smelt like a hospital. That turned my stomach, because I can't imagine what went on in there. I mean, that was like, because, you know. Yeah, so this is from the outside. So this is actually a guard's point of view, and that's why I wanted to get that. And they'll be looking in there. Now, I think if we're looking up that way, I'm trying to think where we were. Yeah, so just up from there it was even like a where they hung people as well, and they'd just leave them hanging there. So that was one of the first things I saw, because it was quite strange, because there was arrows pointing certain ways, and for some reason I kept walking around the wrong way. I could notice everyone walking this way, and I was walking that way, and I thought, oh, I don't care, I'm just going to do it my way, you know. And I came across this, this structure where there was a massive picture of people and public executions. And they would just leave them hanging there and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just, and again, it's just so eerie inside that. And it had been sunny all day, and the minute I came into this camp, it was cold and dreary. Really weird.
So is this the a couple of questions here? Is this the first camp? And number two, I guess, is what I'm going to ask you here is, I see a lot of buildings here at this camp, obviously still standing. Are these the original buildings, and what was kind of inside of these buildings as you went in, just out of curiosity for a visitor standpoint?
Okay, so each block obviously had a number, and then each block was dedicated to a certain topic. So, like, say for instance, there was one block. It was again, it would have been where the people were housed, obviously, but they turned them into exhibitions. One of them was dedicated to Jews from Belgium, and so it had names of people on lists, people's pictures and people's stories, artifacts from that. And then other blocks were, from France or from this area or from that area. And then, like I said, you had one dedicated to the hospital, which was a hospital. Like I said, it smelt like a hospital. You had that death block, which again was the worst one for me. And just a mixture of different exhibitions, really. A lot of the blocks were closed off. You couldn't go in them all, but there were quite a few that you could go in, and so just sort of like went in and out of them. But yeah, they were tough. Like I said, the toughest one was that one with a picture of the kids. But they were just sort of separated up into exhibitions, and just sort of like reminding you of and remembering the people that had died there, or had been part of this horrid thing that had gone on.
Looking at this photo, one of the things, and I may be a little bit weird for this, but one of the things that always just grips my mind when I visit historical sites is, sometimes there'll be artifacts there that were there, when the events actually happened. And it could be something as small as a steel post. But here we have barbed wire and the barbed wire fence holders. This photo is one of my favorite photos I've ever seen taken from any concentration camp. Dad sent me this photo. And, I love this photo, not because it's a good photo. Well, which, Dad, you do take good photos. Not saying that. I mean, this is a great photo as a photographer standpoint, but this photo speaks volumes of it speaks volumes about this camp. It is a hell behind barbed wire, is what I like to refer to the concentration camps as. And it really was. And in this photo, you can see this. You can see the barbed wire still remaining on the original barbed wire post here. And you can imagine, you can almost imagine what it must have been like to get off of one of these train cars, to make your way into this camp, and this is the first thing you're greeted with is these barbed wire fences. And walking in here, Daz, did you kind of have a similar experience? And was that kind of going through your mind a little bit as well?
You knew you was in a prison the minute you walked in. And again, like I said, this is like the perimeter outside. For me, I mean, even now looking at this picture, I can imagine the people. I can imagine the hustle and bustle in there. Also, one other thing that I will point out is, and again, I don't know, I think we're at the front of the camp here. There was an actual segregation wall which wasn't there anymore to segregate men and women. So women were one side of the camp, men were other. But again, it's a big camp, but it's not as big as the other place. And again, they just kept shoving people in there and realised this is not big enough, and that's why they built that other camp down the road. But just out here is just to the side of this photograph here from this fence is probably is one of those gas chambers, and that's on the outside. And again, so some of these people would have seen the smoke coming out of that chimney and smelt it, and so that's the entrance to the chamber. And so for some people this is probably the last daylight they ever saw, or they would have seen, yeah, and they would have just crammed in there. Now, I don't know how many went in at a time, but it was quite a lot. Yeah, that was quite... I sort of left that bit till last. I didn't want to do it, and I kept having to go back to it. But I finally plucked up the courage.
What was it? What was it like inside of those gas chambers? I mean, of course, I know you probably didn't film or, take any stills inside of there, but um, what? I don't know. What was it? The experience like standing in there? I mean, I've often been curious about what people feel when they go into one of these rooms.
It was horrid. I mean, I did actually film the whole thing going right through. I don't know whether I sent you the picture or sent the film over for that one. I did actually walk the whole way through into the and then, like I said, you walk through, you went left of the door straight into this awful room, and just a chill went down my back, just a chill. And then you'd come out another door and there was the two furnaces. And yeah, there wasn't many people in there at that time either. I think there was about three people, and so you got a real sense of the atmosphere in there. Really horrible, musty smell. But again, as Josh said, none of this stuff has changed since that day that it was liberated 80 years ago. And now some of the buildings inside, yes, because they were renovating one when I was there. And what was going through my mind is the builders, like, imagine having to go to work there every day, knowing what went on there. They're going in there and they're working. And then also I'm thinking, imagine shutting up at night. My mind was going crazy, but this was awful. This was probably the worst thing in the whole place. And it's there completely intact. And it's just, because again, they didn't get, I don't know why they made an effort to cover up everything else, but they left this one there. You'd have thought they'd have tried to get rid of that too, wouldn't you? But I don't know. But this camp just didn't get touched. It's like a time capsule. You're actually standing there in 1945. Okay, so this is actually the death wall that I was talking about. So that building there that you can see the two windows, that is the death block. So you went to that block, you are not going to come out of Auschwitz alive. You have done something wrong, or they don't like you, that's it. You go there You either come out up against this wall and you're shot, or you die of starvation in there. You didn't have a blanket, mattress, nothing. You just shoved in a room with a little peephole and an iron door and locked up forever. That was it until you died.
Um, Daz, everyone, he called me up earlier this morning and he said, "Hey, we've got to do a live stream about this. I've got to share the experience of being I just got to share it." And I said, "Okay, we'll do something tonight, as quick as possible." And I'm glad we did, but as we're talking, I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to, find some good, something to get a little upbeat. But there is nothing upbeat about this place. I mean, I thought this was a memorial outside. I didn't realize you had just said that this is the actual death wall. Now I've seen photos of it. It just didn't click, you know, register in my brain that that's what this actually is until now. And now that I can look at it and it's larger, you can see the bullet holes still there. And I don't know. I see why Dad said he wanted to share this experience because, I mean, it leaves you speechless. It really does. And I don't know. Why, Daz, do you think it's important for us to remember stuff like this for the generations today to be able to take places and events such, like this? It's just horrible, horrible, and learn from it. I mean, why do you think learning about all of this is so important to today's generation?
And again, this is a thing. I saw a lot of young people coming through here. Now I get it. Like a lot of universities travel there and they do a lot of school trips there and stuff like that. But I think the younger generation these days are disconnected from history, and this really brings it into their face. And this is the other thing as well. Everyone was so respectful, which you would be. But sometimes big groups of teenagers and that, they can be a bit rowdy and a bit loud. No, everyone was so respectful there. But again, you're walking into this atmosphere of this place and knowing what happened. And some of them might not have known what happened before they went there, but they were very respectful. And I think they'll go away from this going, wow, and hopefully take something away and say, look, we don't want something like this to ever happen again, to this level. And yeah, but it was a tough experience. But again, glad I did it. But I think if you go there, you're definitely going to come out a different person and think things differently. It's definitely going to put your ass into perspective very, very quickly about how evil us human beings can be to each other.
I'm trying to find the words to say here. um, not ever being at Auschwitz, I've studied it, and Daz is across the pond for me over in England, and I'm in the U.S. of A. here, and it's two completely different worlds. But what's in my mind in saying that is that even though we're thousands of miles apart here, we both know what Auschwitz is. We both know the heaviness that this place carries. And, for a place to have an impact on not only the entire world, but the entire civilization of the world, is saying something. And Auschwitz didn't make a mark in history, it made its mark in the universe. Because this place is known to every single person in almost every corner of the world. They have heard the name Auschwitz. They immediately know what Auschwitz is. But how many people know exactly what happened at Auschwitz? And that's the reason why it's important to dig into the history of World War II, the history of what happens here, is so you know how this place come into existence. Should have been in existence? No, hell no. This place should have never even seen the light of day. But unfortunately, it did, and it it takes events like that, I think, sometimes to bring people to their knees, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't. And again, like we said earlier, I just don't know how. Man, I don't know how one human being could just do that to another human being, even with the logic of thinking that was going on and the brainwashing that was going on. I mean, it was something that should never have occurred. Should have never have occurred in the first place. But it's important to look at images like this and important to make these trips like this. But Des, I'm going to ask you, what was by far your favorite part as we start winding down here of Auschwitz? What was by far your favorite part, or your most memorable or meaningful part of Auschwitz? Because I don't want to say anything about this place is good, because it's really not. Um, the history that comes out of it and that we learn from can make the world better. But there's nothing good about this place. But what is perhaps, I guess, the parts that stick with you the most about being here?
Again, that from the larger camp was that railway track that led into that archway. That was, yeah, that was quite powerful, because it's something you see as a picture and never think you're ever going to see it with your own eyes. And I literally walked the length of it. Now, at this point, we started off on a railway track, which was a bit further down, and what they did is they had a single cattle cart on there. And again, yeah, these cattle carts were where people were shoved in, and a lot of people at a time, pitch black. And they had one of these. This is the one I'm talking about. So this is slightly off, away from the camp, and they get you to walk around. And I just went, and we was with a group, but it wasn't like a guided group, so you could sort of just, he said, right, as long as you're back at this place at this time, just go and do what you want. And I literally walked the length of the railway track. Now, some people's properties are located looking at this. They look out their window every day and they see this, and some of that track actually goes through their property, and then it veers around and goes to that, archway that we saw, the famous one that everyone's used to seeing. And the minute I got inside, I carried on following that track all the way to that platform. I didn't deviate from it either. So this is the one on that, the original one that I was telling you about. And people have left stones and like white roses scattered around everywhere. This was actually part of it, and again, I wasn't going to do as much film as I thought I was going to do. I did quite a lot more, and I am going to put something together, because I feel like at first I wasn't going to, because I'm thinking is it disrespectful? I don't know, and I'm not glorifying any of this. I just want people to see it, because, like you said, it's important that we learn from this, And so now I'm going to put something together, and I've got a lot of footage, and I'm going to really, hopefully, I'll do it some justice. What I really liked is the museum themselves. They actually commented on one of my Instagram posts, which made me go, do you know what? Actually, this deserves to be, shown. Because otherwise all these people died in vain, if you know what I mean. But yeah, moment going up that track, I literally followed the whole track. So I went on the same route that those people, and I was walking out in the fresh air. I was putting one of these. So I was thinking to myself as I walked up that track, I'm the lucky one here. And I actually said a few prayers to myself. And I'm not super religious. I've delved in and out of it. And if you've got a belief, you've got a belief. But at some point I did say a few prayers as I was walking up that track.
These pictures, man, are, they just they kind of put it all into perspective once you understand really what you're looking at. I mean, you can look at pictures of Auschwitz all day long, but unless you have someone who took them personally like you did, and you share them with us, and you're giving us the perspectives of these photos and videos of what we're actually looking at, it puts the place into perspective and makes you understand it a little bit better, and you understand what you're looking at. And Daz runs a great YouTube channel, American Civil War and UK History, um, here on YouTube. You guys need to go check him out. Need to subscribe to him. He's also our social media manager for Emerging Civil War. Plug in there for Emerging Civil War, as always. And you know, we're colleagues, outside of doing this stuff, and friends, and we talk a lot about historical topics, but I think this is probably one of the most memorable conversations that we've had so far, is Daz sharing this trip with us. And the crazy thing that you said, Daz, is that the tracks actually goes through people's property. Now, I don't think you would ever catch me in the blue hell buying a piece of property where there's tracks laid that, this happened on. I mean, it just, that sounds like bad juju ready to spill out everywhere. So, but, I don't know. I mean, it's important to remember these places, and remember what happened here. And Des, I can't wait to see these videos on YouTube. You got me all excited now because, the thing about YouTube, and I know you think the same way, is it helps people visit and learn about places they may never get a chance to go to. I may never get to go to Poland, but you've kind of went there for me and sharing that experience with me. What would, and I'm just curious, how long, if you had to put a timestamp on it, how long would it take someone you think to visit and get the most out of all of this?
You only need a day at Auschwitz. Again, so it was, and this is the thing. It's so, once you're there, it's so affordable as well. As far as I understand, the museum don't actually charge you to go in. I think it's charitably run or something like that, or something I read. But I did it through a tour. I paid £7 English pounds for a bus to take me to the museum, jump the queues to get in, go round that, take me to the first camp, back to the other camp, things like that, and it was all in the cost of about £7. Now, normally the one that I should have gone on would have been an actual guide that took you around the whole thing, but they've got guide shortages at the moment, so they said, well, we'll take you, but you've got to do it yourself. But that, I prefer that myself anyway. I know enough about it anyway. I don't need some. And to be honest with you, when one of the guys was telling us about this carriage, I didn't want to listen to the stories anyway, because I know the stories, not in a nasty way, because they're horrible. I don't want to listen to it. I know what happened. I don't want to hear it again. I want to go on my own journey. So and I forgot what your original question was because I've gone off on a tangent. But no, yeah, sorry. But
Uh, I £7 really. So I'm still trying to do the math. I mean, we had this conversation when we were hanging out in person in Virginia last year. I'm trying to figure out what in the world is American dollars compared to UK dollars here in £7. I think that's seven American dollars, right?
I'm going to tell you, 1 second. I'm converting it right now. It's about $9, about $10 it cost me. $10. Yeah.
That's a bargain.
That was a real bargain. Yeah, and again, I would say to people, if it's something you want to go and do it. Really, And there is a good side to this, and not the camp, but the city of Krakow. You know, what a city. I mean, I didn't get to see any of it in the daylight, to be honest with you, because I didn't have time. But it's somewhere you take your wife, you know. We're talking your typical European city with a square. You go out at night, there's horse and carts, and there's, you know, restaurants all set out in the square. Got a really beautiful 13th century church and a market and everything that goes with it. So, you know, you've got that to go back to and sort of ground yourself afterwards.
Well, Daz, I want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your trip with us. And guys, if you ever get a chance, I mean, go visit. Take some Kleenex with you or your hankies with you. I don't know what you guys, if you guys even have Kleenex in England. It's probably called something else. So, and I'm sure it probably tastes better too. Well, if you ate Kleenex, I don't know. But yeah, Daz has got me on beans on toast, and I tried it, guys. You got to try this. Excellent. But anyway, Daz, you know, trying to lighten the conversation here as we depart. Guys, if you will, go check out and subscribe to American Civil War and UK History, Daz's channel here on YouTube. It's great. It's awesome. You can also follow Daz and I at Emergent Civil War, emergentcivilwar.com as well. And of course, you know, you got me right here on History Saver 1941. And what a way to bring back the Coffee and History podcast with, you know, a tearjerker, I guess, but, you know, something very important and very cool. I mean, as far as a history nerd sees it, I mean, it's history is, you know, we think every history is cool, but this isn't really a cool historical place. This is more of a very somber and really sad one. But it's important, I think, for everyone to try to go visit this place at least once. So, Daz, any departing words for us as we get out?
Yes, just want to say thank you to you for giving me this opportunity, because I had to talk about this today. I couldn't wait any longer because I wanted to talk about it. My wife said, I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to know. So I had no one to talk to about it. But I also want to say, make sure you go and subscribe to Josh's channel. And if you're on the channel now, make sure you go and like and subscribe and share and everything. And Josh, at some point, I know you're proper into the Indian side of native Indian side of things to the American Civil War, aren't you? So we are going to do a podcast on my platform at some point about that in the future. That is coming. So yeah, but watch out for the videos, guys. They'll be up at some point in the near future. But thank you so much for this opportunity to come and share that experience. I'm, really grateful for all the work you do as well, and appreciate you.
All right. Well, thank you, Daz, so much, man. It's we have fun together, certainly. So, guys, again, subscribe to American Civil War and UK History. And for me, well, here at History Saver 1941, I've got more coming for you. These have been rocky, but a lot more coming. And make sure you go and read up on some of the history of Auschwitz and the World War II German concentration camps for yourself. And the more you learn, the better you get, the more you grow. So until next time, keep preserving history, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one. See you then.